Okay, this is Mom Boss Mondays. So, what that really means to me is that I, for years, have had so many people come up to me and say, Robin, how do you do it? How do you do it? How do you have the kids? How do you have the career? You must be going crazy. One of my favorite, not favorite statements that people say is, how did you go back to work after having 4 kids, 2 and under? And what's always been interesting to me is that I know for a fact my husband has never been asked that question. Nobody would have ever said to John, why did you go back to work after you have 4 children? And so as much as I've never really thought about feminism and those kind of things prior to this, it's really dawned on me that women really do have incredibly full plates. So how do we get it all done? And what inspires us? What puts a chip on our shoulder to move forward? So I want to talk just a little bit about what started my inspiration and became a chip. So back in 1999, John and I got married, super excited to be married, took off to Hawaii on this incredible honeymoon that we never anticipated having, kind of a gift through the mortgage industry, if you will, that I was able to even go on that vacation with John. And we came home. And about 6 weeks later, we found out we were pregnant with our first son. We were thrilled. And I went into my boss, who was in her mid-30s at the time, and just a powerhouse woman. And I loved her. She was a loan officer. She was a mother. She was a wife. She was a top producer. She was somebody that walked into a room and people could feel her confidence and her energy. And you knew she meant business and just getting things done. And she was so well respected and highly regarded that I thought the small town girl from Klamath Falls, Oregon, all of a sudden married at 21 years old, pregnant with her first child, like one day I'm going to be like her. So I walked into her office pretty giddy, but scared to death that I was pregnant. And I walked in and I said, guess what? I'm pregnant. And I'll never forget the look of disgust on her face. I'll never forget the way she stared at me and said, Jesus, Robin, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to take a birth control pill. And I thought, what just happened? And she said, I had such high hopes for you. Literally your career basically is over. And I was dumbfounded. So I walked out of that room reeling about becoming a mother and then having this desire to be a career woman. What's interesting is she was a mother, right? But she knew the toll that it took. And as I looked back, I thought about all the times that I literally was with her son, taking care of him, loving on him, being a babysitter for him. And she was a great mother. She was still a great mother. But I think even in her mind, this powerhouse woman, you literally had to choose. You had to choose one or the other. And so at that time, I really didn't realize that you couldn't, that you didn't have to choose. It was the first chip though on my shoulder, right? So I went home, cried, kind of mourned the loss of what I knew would be my, budding career in my mind of what was going to happen next. I knew that I was going to have to part ways with a woman that I admired and respected. And frankly, I was hurt. And I was scared about what the future would hold in lending. It would also be, whether or not it was lending, it was at that moment in John and I's life, it was survival, right? How are we going to put food on the table? I worked because we needed a dual income household. And so those were important pieces to what I was deciding next. So I had Griffin and wonderful experience having a baby, went back to work. I got a phone call from a loan officer and he said, hey, are you looking for work? I heard that you were at home with a baby. And I said, yes, I'm looking. And he said, can you come back sooner than your normal maternity leave? So I made a choice. I stopped my maternity leave about 4 weeks early and I went back to work with a really young baby. And it was a decision for me that I never felt like I was choosing work over Griffin. I felt like I needed to choose work, one for me, because I really loved I love being a mother. It's the best title I have. I love being a wife. It's another incredible title that I have. I needed to still be Robin. And the Robin part of me came into play at work. And so when he called, yes, selfishly, there was a part of me that was like, I want to go to work. And it's crazy that we even affiliate the word selfish while being a mother. Like there was no choosing one or the other. It was simply, why can't I have both? So I made a conscious choice. I got back in. I became a processor for years, got pregnant with what we thought would be our second and last pregnancy, and found out about 3 months in that there were triplets. Literally 3. Now, let me paint a picture for you. We were in survival mode, didn't even own a home. We had a 2-year-old at home. We literally paycheck to paycheck, month to month, what we were doing. I was working a ton of hours while balancing being a mama and being a wife, but we were happy. We were really happy. Griffin was happy. John and I were happy. I loved my work. John loves his work. Everything was good. We find out that there are 3 babies, and I felt like the world was crumbling around me. At the end of the day, I know God doesn't give us what we can't handle, and I knew I could move forward. So I went in, I told my new boss that I was pregnant with triplets. Now at this point, I've been with him for basically 2 years, just over 2 years. He's known me for longer than that. And I could see the look of panic on this gentleman's face. I could see that he instantly stopped seeing me as a powerhouse processor that practically ran his business for him, to all of a sudden this weak mother that was not going to be able to work the hours he wanted me to work, that everything about it was about him, about his business, and all the visions of what I could not do if I was a mom and an employee, which is insane to me, you guys, just crazy. So he called me in his office about 3 weeks later, and he said, I have great news. I'm gonna lay you off with pay. Because he was so scared that if I was pregnant with 3 babies, that I would not be able to give his business what it needed. And so he sent me home, literally. Now, bed rest was gonna come anyway, so let me just side note that. Bed rest was coming. I was pregnant with triplets, right? Bed rest was coming. But the truth is, he didn't think I could do it. And at that moment, I wasn't sure either. So I went home. I stayed on bed rest for almost 5 months. I went insane. I delivered 3 healthy babies. We spent some time in the NICU. I ended up with 4 kids, 2 and under. My marriage was still good. We were still fighting to survive financially. And I made a choice again to go back to work. Those 2 circumstances is why I'm going to kick off Mom Boss Monday, because at the end of the day, I want to tell my story. I want to tell the everyday stories that I can remember all the way back from the day I was pregnant to now, with a budding career, with 4 fantastic kids, 1 adopted, all who have done wonderful things. My marriage is still intact. I love the growth that I see every day at work. And yes, there are sacrifices. Yes, there are choices. But yes, at the end of the day, I want to show women you can truly have it all, whatever your version of having it all is. I look forward to sharing all with you soon.